Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today's story is a masterclass in long game revenge, and it all ends with a multi-millionaire scooping toxic sludge off his lawn and straight into a jail cell. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. My boss was a millionaire who treated us like dirt, so I sent OSHA and the EPA his way. In the year 2003, the company I was working for closed down, so I sought out new employment. I was a machinist by trade with a great reputation, so it took me less than a day to get a job. We'll call the new place Spiral because of the specialized tools they made. Anyway, I started out as one of the operators. The place was owner-operated, meaning the owner was there daily. He had a floor supervisor that was actually pretty nice. After I'd been there around a year, the owner and super had a falling out and the super left. For whatever reason, the owner, we shall call him Jerk, told me I was in charge. A little backstory on Jerk. He was in his 60s and had started the company out of his garage. He ended up buying a huge chunk of land and turned it into an industrial park, all while in his 20s. By now, he was one of the richest guys in the state. He was also the biggest a-hole I'd ever met. He treated every employee like garbage except for me and one other guy. If we dared to talk to each other during work hours, he would scream at us. My promotion kind of financially trapped me, though. Jerk would have no problems talking to me, though, and he was the braggy sort or rich guy while paying us the bare minimum. During our talks, I learned that he cooked his books. You see, the industrial park was owned by an entity that he created, while Spiral was owned by another. He would always make sure that the park entity charged Spiral enough in rent that it looked like the company was barely staying afloat. He also bragged that he'd taken a bunch of industrial waste and buried it on his property at home because it cost so much less. He made my life hell over the next decade, always keeping my pay just high enough that I couldn't afford to leave while treating me and my guys like crap. I ended up with a 95% turnover rate on employees. I'm not exaggerating. We ended up having to go to temp agencies, and towards the end, even they refused to send me people. I had to do some careful wording, but my duties ended up swelling to the point where I convinced Jerk to let me say I was the plant manager. This right here was huge. I have no degree from college, but I now had a title and the experience. I started to look for a job in earnest, and after 6 months, I found one for a lot more money with benefits. Yeah, Spiral had none. Now, over my time at Spiral, I'd seen everyone that gave them notice be told to leave on the spot, and the company that hired me insisted I give them the 2-week notice, so I said I would, but I didn't. At the end of my last day, I sat at my desk and sent an email to the head of OSHA and the state's EPA office, 2 men that I'd gotten to know well. I filled them in on all the violations that Jerk had disclosed. I also sent an email to the state's attorney about the books. I left my keys on my desk with a paper under them that simply read, "I quit." I never found out if the state's attorney went anywhere, but the contact at OSHA let me know the company ended up with $150,000 in fines for some willful violations, and the guy from the EPA dug up half of Jerk's property before he admitted to where he buried the waste. Last I knew, he ended up in jail. And our second story. He destroyed the office vibe, I destroyed his reputation. Back when I worked in sales for a small family-owned business, things were generally decent. The owners weren't super involved. They were more concerned with profit margins and client acquisition than team morale, but the day-to-day environment was bearable, even enjoyable at times. We had a tight-knit team, good camaraderie, and while it wasn't perfect, it was definitely a place you could survive and even thrive in for a while. That all changed after about 2 years when the owners brought in a new vice president of sales. He was clearly hired to shake things up, but instead of energizing the team, he sucked the life out of the place. Morale plummeted within weeks of his arrival. His management style was straight from a bad corporate playbook, micromanagement, aggressive quotas, taking credit for everyone else's work, and throwing people under the bus whenever things didn't go his way. The culture turned toxic fast. People stopped smiling at work. Conversations became shorter, more guarded. He was one of those guys who acted like he had something to prove and made sure everyone around him felt inferior. You couldn't speak your mind, and any sort of feedback was seen as insubordination. Slowly but surely, the office dynamic unraveled. After 6 months under his reign of terror, I decided enough was enough. I wasn't the only one. 2 other longtime employees, both respected and reliable, also turned in their resignations around the same time. We didn't coordinate it, but it felt like a collective silent protest. During my exit interview, I leveled with the owners. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told them plainly that the new VP was poison to the company culture. I expected at least a pause, maybe even a flicker of concern, but no, they brushed it off, insisting he was turning things around and that I just wasn't used to real leadership. Fine, let them learn the hard way. A few weeks later, while I was sitting in a waiting room at my doctor's office, I had an idea. Petty? Definitely. But I figured I'd already left the company, so what did I have to lose? I pulled up Glassdoor and anonymously submitted a review as a current employee. I crafted a short but pointed message describing how the once promising workplace had become unbearable under the new VP. I claimed that employees were all quietly job hunting, morale was at an all-time low, and that the company was at serious risk of losing even more talent. I didn't exaggerate, it was all true. But I wrote it in a way that would absolutely get under the owner's skin. And it worked. The very next day, my phone lit up with messages from my still employed former colleagues. The VP didn't show up to work. He worked from home that day, which for someone who insisted on everyone being in the office at 8 a.m. sharp was highly suspicious. Even more suspicious, the owners held one-on-one meetings with every employee that same day, asking vague questions about the work environment, the VP, and how people were feeling about the company's direction. Apparently, they were rattled. What they heard must have confirmed everything I had written in the review, plus some, because the VP never returned to the office. He wasn't fired, at least not immediately, but he was quietly let go a short while later. The owners didn't announce anything formally, but word spread fast, and instead of hiring another outsider, they promoted someone from within, a level-headed, competent manager who had the team's respect. The vibe of the office changed overnight. According to the folks I still talk to, things slowly started getting better, morale improved, people stopped dreading Monday mornings, and over time, the business actually grew. I can't take full credit for that shift, obviously, but I have no doubt that my little review was the spark that lit the fuse. I've never told anyone in that company what I did. It was a bit shady, sure, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat. If one anonymous post was enough to expose the truth and help turn things around, then I'd say it was more than worth it. Sometimes the quietest actions make the loudest impact. And our next story. My HOA tried to lien my condo. Karen didn't expect me to fight back. Hey Reddit, let me take you back to the worst $25 I never spent, thanks to my HOA's glitch and one particularly power-tripping Karen. So I live in a condo with monthly dues. Nothing outrageous. Around April 2020, when the world shut down and everyone was either baking banana bread or desperately job hunting, I decided to switch from paying my HOA by check to ACH. Easier, right? Well, something in the system glitched and my first ACH payment never went through. I didn't even notice until the next month when I got a neat little note from my HOA saying I owed a $25 late fee. Not, hey, heads up, not, we see you tried to pay, just give us $25 more. At a time when banks were freezing mortgages and we were all clapping for healthcare workers every night, that felt a little aggressive. I figured I'd call and explain the issue, get it waived. Spoiler, I didn't call right away. And that was my biggest mistake. Every month that passed, they tacked on more fees, $50, then another $50, interest on interest. It was like watching a payday loan snowball in real time, all during a global pandemic. By the time I finally called a few months later, the total was nearing $250, all because of one hiccup. I got connected to Karen, the HOA manager. Yes, that Karen. She sounded polite enough at first, even casual, said, actually, I could use a hand. We've got a contractor coming in and I need someone to let him into the building. You help me out, I'll take care of your fees. Do you a solid. Sounded fair. I helped. The guy got in. Karen said we were square. Fast forward a few weeks, it's election time. I decided to run for treasurer, thinking maybe I could help fix this clown show from the inside. The voting room set up, masked neighbors spaced 6 feet apart, ballots in hand. Who's handing out ballots? Karen. I step up, ready to vote, and hand over my form, and she gives me this fake saccharine smile and goes, "Oh, you're not eligible to vote or run. You have an outstanding balance." My face probably went blank. "Karen, you said—" "I don't recall ever speaking with you," she interrupts, loud and firm, like I was just some crank off the street. "I've never agreed to waive any fees." You could hear a record scratch. A few people turned. One guy said, "Wait, what?" The election, complete chaos. Arguments broke out, ballots went missing, someone shoved a folding chair, and cops were called. I didn't win treasurer, but a whole bunch of angry homeowners started sniffing around after that. Meanwhile, my balance kept climbing. With interest and late penalties, it ballooned to nearly $500. No explanations, no grace, just cold, automated threats. Then the cherry on top, a letter from the county. A lien had been placed on my property over a technical issue and a petty $25. I called the HOA's attorney, left messages offering a settlement, no response. They were stonewalling me. So I bypassed them completely. I called the HOA president, the actual elected one, not Karen. I told him everything, showed the email threads, the dates, the payment attempt, Karen's promise. You could hear the silence on the other end. Within a week, I had an official letter from the board. My balance cleared. The lien lifted. Legal fees paid by the collecting attorney, not me. Karen's still employed for now, but her days of unchecked authority are over. Every board meeting since then has been packed. Homeowners want transparency, receipts, justice. This entire disaster, sparked by a $25 fee during a literal pandemic, cost the HOA thousands. All because Karen couldn't admit a system error and wanted to flex her clipboard muscles. And our last story. The day Karen stopped. It was a perfectly ordinary, sunny Monday morning in Texas. I was enjoying my coffee when my phone rang. Melissa, my receptionist, sounded flustered. "Boss, some lady just parked her SUV right inside your private garage." I sighed. "I'll be right there." What I found looked like a scene from hell. A furious 40-something woman with a sharp bob, sunglasses covering half her face, and a pink tracksuit was gesticulating beside her huge white Jeep. "Who do you think you are telling me what to do? This is a free country," she yelled. I walked up calmly. "Ma'am, this is a private garage and I own the building." She laughed in my face. "Ha! You own it? Quit the fantasy, pencil pusher. You just rent an office here. You can't do squat to me." "Listen, either you move your vehicle or what?" she snapped. "Call the cops? They won't touch me. I've got connections, you piece of trash." She kept cursing for a few more minutes, then stormed off to run errands, leaving the Jeep right where it was. Politeness clearly wasn't going to work, so I told Melissa, "Call Bob from the service shop. Tell him to bring the tow truck in the lift." Half an hour later, Bob, grinning ear to ear, arrived. With surgical precision, he hoisted Karen's Jeep and set it nose to wall, wedged tight between a concrete pillar and a wall so the doors could only open a few inches. Next morning, Melissa woke me up. "Boss, the crazy lady's back and screaming like a bear's eating her." I rushed over. The sight was glorious. Karen sat in her Jeep, ramming first the pillar, then the wall, bellowing so loudly it echoed through the neighborhood. "You're all B-turds. I'll have every one of you jailed. Let me out, you brain-dead apes." I tapped on her window. "Ma'am, you're only making it worse." She spun on me like a horror movie demon. "Drop dead, scum! I'll strangle you myself!" Then slammed the Jeep into the pillar again, shattering a headlight and crumpling the hood. Melissa whispered, "Should we call the police?" I waved her off. Let her blow off steam. 10 more minutes of carnage later, the Jeep looked like a crushed soda can. Exhausted, Karen crawled out, panting. "This isn't over. I'm suing you, freak!" The next day, a man in a suit showed up. "Good morning. I'm with West Credit Bank. Have you seen a woman driving a white Jeep?" "Yes, she was here yesterday. Why?" He gave a thin smile. "The vehicle's financed. She's months behind on payments. We've been hunting for it for weeks." Because of the damage she'd done, the bank repossessed the Jeep and slapped her with a penalty for willful destruction of collateral. Court costs snowballed, and Karen ultimately lost her house, also mortgaged with West Credit. I saw her one last time, shrieking outside the bank as they evicted her. "I curse every one of you pieces of crap," she screeched, flailing like an enraged windmill. Watching from a distance, I took a slow sip of coffee and thought, That was a really good cup the day she parked in my garage. Karen's common sense was pure Karen. Every single move she made only dug the hole deeper. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.